name is Debra Lee James. I am a board-certified holistic nurse. You can find me at www.angelictouch.net. And what I do is work with people, primarily women, but all types, that have chronic heart conditions, things like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, congestive heart failure, those types of issues. And I work with them to develop a program where they achieve their level of health. So I don't tell them what their end game is. They tell me where they want to be, and I work with them. If we connect, if I'm certain that they're ready and willing to make changes, I work with them to develop a plan to get them to that point. Well, my education, I have 2 degrees. My first degree is in sociology, and that was from Howard University in 1984. I wanted to do criminal justice, but at the time, Howard did not have a criminal justice program. And as far as forensics, chemistry was not my friend. It has since become that. But I looked at it from the perspective of, if you understand social groups, how people interact, you can use that anywhere. And that served me quite well when, after I graduated, I was commissioned second lieutenant in the United States Air Force. My second degree is my nursing degree, which I got from Johns Hopkins University School of Nursing in 2003. It is my passion. I did not know that that was where I wanted to be, or where I was expected to be, where God wanted me to be. But once I got into nursing, I was like, that's it. Okay, I'm not having any more incarnations as far as careers. I have found my home. I've been in business about 4 years. Prior to that, I had worked as a physical therapy aide. I had worked as a shoe salesperson. I had worked retail. I even worked as a overnight stalker in Target. So, the people that go and they come in when the doors are closed, empty out the trucks, put everything out on the floor. I did that too. But all of those things, helped me to understand, if not so much where I wanted to be, where I didn't want to stay. And so when I came into nursing, I started out at the bedside. I did that for over 10 years, mainly on cardiac units, on heart units. But I've also worked hospice. I've worked home health. I have worked long-term care. I have worked physical rehab. I have worked outpatient GI. So all of those things, and it wasn't like, okay, I did one thing and then I did another. A lot of those things I did at the same time. I always came back to the bedside though, because that's where I had the most connection with people. That was the group of people that I could educate the most. The downside was that I often would not know how things went after they were discharged. The advantages of entrepreneurship. Probably the biggest one is being able to control your path, your life, your schedule. You can decide what things are important for you that you want to go after, and you can determine how you go after that. When I was at the bedside, things had to be done a certain way, regardless. Even if I felt that there was a different way of doing it, or a way that would be more comfortable for the patient, I couldn't necessarily do that, because the hospital has its way, just like any facility does. And so entrepreneurship works for me in terms of being able to reach the type of clients that I want to reach. It's very challenging, and unlike what most people may think, okay, I don't have a boss, that's great, I can control everything. Well, that's true, but at the same time, you're busy. You are always working. So, and unless you're really invested in it, and unless it's something that you really want to do, it's not going to work out. But if it's your passion, if it's something that you absolutely love, and that's the thing that you were put here on earth to do, entrepreneurship is wonderful. Marketing, that ever-changing constant. I market mostly with social media. I have a website, I have a Facebook account, I have a Twitter account, I have an Instagram account. All of those are business-based. I also have private accounts on those. So a lot of what I do comes out either via those social media outlets or directly from my website. People can sign up on my mail list, and I can send them things on a regular basis, information. I have a little part on my website that's an attitude of gratitude to help people out when they're not feeling their best and when they're not feeling worthy. I also have a radio program that I do on All Business Media FM. It is called Professionals Roundtable, and I have 30 minutes on Mondays from 2:30 to 3 p.m. where I talk about holistic health, healthcare issues, and patient advocacy. I also participate in various health fairs. Technology and its impact on business. There are good and bad to it. The good is that you can reach a lot of people at one time. You can transfer information very quickly. You can work with people who are not necessarily physically present with you in terms of video, Skype, those types of media. So you can work with somebody halfway across the world and be effective, but not have to be physically in the same place. So those are some of the advantages to it. The disadvantages are that technology doesn't always work. And when you have a technology failure, that can lead to missed opportunities, misunderstanding, miscommunication, the types of things that you get with that one-on-one interaction, that face-to-face interaction. So technology is beautiful, it's a great thing, but that's why I also do health fairs, presentations, educational events, because that way if people have questions about anything, they can ask me directly. I essentially have 4 main advisors, and they are all entrepreneurs, and they all are business mentors of some type. So I go to them when I have questions about social media, definitely. I go to them when I have questions about what's the best way to approach an event. They work with me in terms of educating myself as a businesswoman. And that's something that is very, very overwhelming at times. So it's nice to have that person who's either training you or helping you to figure out how to run your business and how to run it effectively. Healthcare, there are always ethical issues, unfortunately. You have issues regarding whether or not you're providing adequate care to someone. You have issues regarding whether or not you are working towards the client's best interest or your own best interest. You have ethical issues tied to a person being able to make their own decisions, whether or not they're able to make their own decisions. You have ethical issues tied to their spiritual life. You have ethical issues concerning their home life, their family and interactions. How does that work? And probably the biggest one that most people understand with healthcare is HIPAA, which is that lovely little statement that you cannot give information about someone without their permission. And that's a huge one in healthcare. It's one of those things that once upon a time, if you were seeing someone in the hospital and someone you met that knew them as well asked, hey, how are they doing? You could say that. Nowadays, you really can't, because you don't have their permission. Now, if they tell you, hey, if you run into so-and-so, please let them know I'm here, let them know I'm doing okay. That's fine. But you also have business ethical issues in terms of, is what you're doing on the up and up? Are you cutting corners in contracts? Are you not being totally truthful when you're working with someone? Are you not giving them full disclosure about your background and your training? So that's another huge issue. The easiest way to overcome those issues in my expertise, my area, nursing, you look to your state board, nursing board, licensing procedures. The state board will let you know what is considered in your scope of practice, meaning what things you can legally do and what things you can't. So that's the first and foremost as far as nursing goes. You make sure that you are practicing within your scope of practice. In terms of dealing with issues that come up, I have had a patient who did not want to follow a conventional treatment plan. This patient had cancer. And the patient was married, but the patient's mother and sister came to me and said, how do we get around the husband? How do we become the ones that make the decisions on her care rather than him? Because the husband was acknowledging and accepting the patient's wishes in terms of not seeking conventional care. And I had to explain to them, I can't do that. You can't do that. I said, the only way that you can do that is go to court and try to have the husband declared incompetent. That is the only way. And they asked me about, well, what about power of attorney? I said, if you don't already have power of attorney, again, the default is to the husband. So you cannot do anything but go to court. And I had told them, I said, basically, if you go to court, you're going to spend a lot of money. They're going to spend a lot of money that could be going towards her care. And the only one that's going to be happy in the end are the attorneys. I mean, there are just things you cannot do. People have asked me to do things that were unethical in terms of providing medication that was not ordered, Um, it's a little tricky when you get to whether or not you give the patient medication or not, because patients have the right to refuse medication. But my responsibility is to make them aware of the consequences of not taking that medication. And if they're okay with those consequences, I document it and it's taken care of. But essentially, I'm not going to do anything that I'm not comfortable with. And I'm not going to do anything that I would not want someone else doing, caring for anyone in my family. So you have to know where you stand. And again, being military, prior service, there are things you do and there are things you don't do. And it's just that way. And so I'm very firm. I make a stand. I stand on my convictions. I stand on my faith. I don't directly offer products. I do have kind of a website access for supplements. But again, individuals have to contact me. I set them up with their own password, and I can limit what supplements they have access to, because I'm not going to offer anything until first I know the person's background and what medications they're on, because that would be irresponsible. That would be negligent on my part. But my services I offer direct care nursing. I offer nursing consultations in terms of if somebody has a family member that's in the hospital and they're curious about the types of labs or tests that were ordered, what that might possibly be leading to, what questions do they need to ask. I can do that as far as consulting. I can also work with businesses in terms of setting up a healthcare program for their employees, those types of things. I also provide educational services. I will speak to groups about holistic care, holistic nursing, and also patient advocacy. I do long distance consulting also, in terms of if someone has a question, they can reach me by Skype or video phone and we can talk about their concerns. But again, I don't give out information unless I know what's going on with the person completely. So I need to do a physical, not necessarily a physical, but I need to do a health assessment before I start giving out any advice or doing any consulting. I also have a book I wrote called 7 Questions You Must Ask When Hospitalized, from a nurse who's been there and done that. And that is a patient advocacy book. I cover 7 questions that typically come up in a hospital stay, how to get the answers that you need, and how to be fully informed to make fully empowered decisions, whether it be for yourself or your family member. And so that's my patient advocacy component in my business. I'm very, very passionate about that, because too many times patients make decisions based on what they're told, and they don't know what they're not being told, but they also don't know the questions to ask to find out what they're not being told. So that's why I wrote the book, and that's what some of my educational programs key in on. I contribute my success wholeheartedly to my faith in God. That's not saying that I don't acknowledge other people's faiths. I do, and I try to accommodate their faith system, whatever it is. I had a patient once who was a Wiccan. And when I did her assessment, her initial assessment when she came up to the floor, I asked if she had a faith system. And she said, yes. She said, I am a Wiccan. And I said, well, how come it says no religion or no system on your paperwork from the emergency department? She said, because when I was there, I told the woman that I was a Wiccan, and the woman said, well, that doesn't count, we're going to put nothing. And I was appalled. I was absolutely appalled. And I reassured this woman that I may not believe what you believe, but I wholeheartedly defend your right to practice how you practice. And she was very relieved because she felt like she was just going to be at odds the whole time she was in the hospital. And I explained to her, I said, I will change it on your chart. I will make that correction. And I asked her if there was anything specifically that she needed in terms of her practice. And she said there wasn't anything she needed at that time, but if it was, she would let me know. So I am very tolerant of all faiths. But my faith in God is what makes me successful, because I didn't come up with this talent that I have. It was given to me divinely. And as long as I'm following the path that the Lord has put in front of me, I will be successful. Some may not see it as successful in terms of what society thinks, but it is definitely successful in terms of I'm living my dream. I'm doing what I was put here on this earth to do. And as long as I'm doing that, I'm successful. What made me choose my current location? I would have to say convenience. I live in this area. So that was the main reason. But also because I feel like there's a need for enlightenment in this area in terms of how to better care for your health, how to be proactive instead of reactive in your health care, and knowing your own body, knowing that you have choices. But also, this area is convenient. It's called the four-state area because you have easy access to Maryland, which is where we are, easy access to Pennsylvania, easy access to West Virginia, easy access to Virginia. You know, everything is within probably 90-minute drive. I can be from here to Martinsburg, West Virginia in 45 minutes. I can be from here to Leesburg, Virginia in about 50 minutes, depending on traffic. But it's also close to DC, easy access, also close to Baltimore. So I can educate myself with others as well as being able to educate others. So I go to conferences because I'm still learning. I'm always learning. I always will learn. And that enables me to help others in this area because I feel that there's really a need for that. My business is unique because I'm special. I have a different way of looking at things. I gather information from various sources, including empathically. I am an empath. So I will kind of key on things that people are not talking about, and that helps me again to better understand their situation. Now, I'm not a mind reader. Don't do that. And even if I were, I would not do that without permission. I'm also a Reiki practitioner, and that's a type of energy work that kind of gives me insights into things that might be going on with people as well. So that's what actually makes me unique. However, my business is unique because I'm here to serve others. Money is nice, but money is not the end all and be all. My purpose here is to help people find another way of helping themselves, improving their health, improving their family's health, improving their community health. That's what makes my business unique. I've got the experience, I've got the training, and I'm always learning. I listen to people and I genuinely take into consideration their concerns whenever I'm trying to develop a program for them. And that's not something you find too much. I learned from this interview that my love and passion for nursing has only grown the longer I do it. It is just something that I just love it. I absolutely love it. I'm passionate about making a difference in people's lives. And to be honest, I don't ever really plan on retiring. I mean, I might have to cut back a little bit, but I love this work so much that I will do it for as long as I am physically capable and as long as the Lord allows me. For everyone who is watching this, listening to it, I want you to know one thing. You matter. You are here on this earth for a reason. You are important to someone. You may not even know who that someone is, but you matter. Don't let anyone tell you that you don't matter. Don't let anyone tell you that you are unworthy of love, because you are. Everyone is worthy of love. Be careful what you say to yourself, because you are listening.